The conflict between the Chinese Communist Party and North Korea is becoming more apparent. Since the beginning of this year, China's exports of essential grains and agricultural supplies like rice, corn, and fertilizer to North Korea have decreased by up to 98% compared to last year. The export of nitrogen fertilizer to North Korea has also dropped significantly. It seems that China is tightening its relationship with North Korea by adjusting trade volumes. According to publicly available data from China's General Administration of Customs, between January and August of this year, North Korea imported $4.5 million worth of rice from China. In comparison, the same period last year saw $65.8 million in imports. This year's figure is only 11.3% of the previous year's. Furthermore, exports of corn, nitrogen fertilizer, and compound fertilizer to North Korea have also dropped sharply. Nitrogen fertilizer exports during this period amounted to $17,596, a 98.9% decrease from $1.58 million last year, making the largest decline. Corn and compound fertilizer exports fell by 97.7% and 81.5% respectively. Experts believe that the sharp drop in rice and fertilizer exports indicates that China is starting to regulate its relationship with North Korea. Sources familiar with China-North Korea relations told South Korean media that United Nations sanctions are still in effect, and China is not in a hurry to restore relations with North Korea. Restarting the Beijing-Pyongyang train, K-27, will also take time, and North Korea's lack of foreign currency is another major obstacle to normalizing trade with China. Ko Soo-suk, a part-time professor at Korea National University, said, "If Trump is elected U.S. president, North Korea might once again bypass China to engage with the U.S., as it did in 2018. This can be seen as North Korea preparing for such a scenario through trade." The reduction in North Korea's grain imports has led to a continuous rise in rice prices in the North Korean market. According to a regular price survey conducted by Daily NK, as of September 15th, the price of 1 kilo of domestically produced rice in one Pyongyang market was $7. This is the first time the price has reached $7 since early October last year. Similar price increases are seen in other regions as well. Compared to mid-September in previous years, current rice prices in North Korean markets have reached a new historical high. The average rice price in Pyongyang, Sinuiju, and Haesan is now $7.14 US, which is 10 cents higher than the record price of $7.04 in mid-September last year. In this context, corn prices have also remained high. On September 15th, the price of 1 kilogram of corn in a Pyongyang market was $3.56, an increase of 6.7% from September 2nd. Analysts suggest that the decrease in the supply of rice and corn is the main reason for the continued rise in food prices. This situation is the result of both a reduction in domestically produced grain and a decrease in imported grain in North Korea. At the end of July, Voice of America, citing data from China's General Administration of Customs, reported that North Korea's rice imports from China in the first half of this year were only 1/10 of last year's imports. Reports have long indicated that North Korea has faced chronic food shortages, leading to widespread hunger and severe malnutrition among its population. On April 2nd, according to a Daily NK source in China, North Korea began importing large quantities of rice from northeastern China in mid-March. This rice is transported by freight train from Dandong, Liaoning Province, to Sinuiju in North Korea's North Pyongan Province. It's understood that since January, Chinese customs have tightened inspections on goods exported to North Korea. Items listed under the United Nations Security Council sanctions against North Korea have faced significant difficulty getting onto the freight trains heading to Sinuiju. In particular, China has sometimes banned the export of rice, leading North Korean trading companies to repeatedly request that Chinese customs allow rice imports, arguing that rice is not a sanctioned item. Since the start of spring, North Korea's food shortage has worsened, increasing its demand for Chinese rice. As a result, China started allowing rice exports by freight train in mid-March. However, according to the source, the rice imported to North Korea was of low quality, typically used for animal feed in China. This means the imported rice was fragile, moldy, and mixed with impurities like stones, rice that is generally not seen on the Chinese market. The price of this rice was 2,300 yuan per ton. By comparison, on March 27th, the delivery of price for Thailand's B-grade long-grain rice, a standard in Asia, was $607 per ton, which is nearly double the price North Korea paid for its imported rice. The source also mentioned that while North Korean trade representatives have no problems spending large amounts of money on luxury goods, they claim they cannot afford more expensive rice, implying that they don't view rice as a priority. In July 2019, the Center for Advanced Defense Studies, C4ADS, in the U.S., released a report revealing that 93% of North Korea's luxury goods are imported from China. A 2019 report by Chosun Ilbo cited the C4ADS report, which stated that China and Russia serve as significant loopholes in enforcing sanctions against North Korea. According to C4ADS, between 2015 and 2017, 19 countries exported luxury goods to Pyongyang, nearly triple the 32 countries that reported such exports to the United Nations Security Council. In terms of value, the total reported to the UN was approximately $191 million, while C4ADS identified a much larger value, over $5 billion, a discrepancy of 27 times. China accounted for 93% of the luxury goods supply to North Korea, while Russia was the main channel for importing luxury cars into the country. The report revealed that the luxury goods entering North Korea included high-end Mercedes-Benz, Lexus vehicles, iPhones, perfumes, designer clothing, and watches. The analysis indicated that despite international sanctions, North Korea imports luxury goods primarily to meet the demands of a small elite group that supports its leader, Kim Jong-un. The report further explained that North Korea has been able to import luxury goods on such a large scale by exploiting the global supply chain. Each country's legal standards for luxury goods vary slightly, and the classification of products under the Harmonized System Code differs. By sourcing through multiple countries, North Korea is able to obtain the goods it needs. The analysis suggests that China's covert assistance to North Korea weakens the effectiveness of UN sanctions against the country. Reports indicate that the North Korean authorities have been covering up instances of famine by claiming that people who died of starvation actually died from illnesses. In rural North Korea, the potato harvest ended in late March, yet many men, women, and children can still be seen digging in the fields with hoes, searching for leftover or discarded potatoes that harvesters missed or threw away due to spoilage. According to a Radio Free Asia report, a resident of Ryanggang province who is connected to the agricultural sector said that the sight of people scavenging in the fields highlights the recurring hunger problem at this time of year. The food distributed by the government at the end of last year has already been consumed, and the next scheduled distribution has yet to arrive. The resident disclosed that after last fall's harvest, the Ryanggang government gave each farmer 200 kilograms of potatoes and an additional 100 kilograms for each of their dependents. He mentioned that the government had promised rice and corn in the second round of distribution, but so far nothing has been delivered. North Koreans receive regular government food rations, but these are insufficient to live on, so people have to buy additional food from the market or find other sources. Although last year's harvest was better than in previous years, North Koreans are still facing food shortages. North Korea's agricultural output remains far below the annual food needs estimated by the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization. As a result, another resident of Ryanggang said that the annual hunger period in North Korea has arrived right on schedule. Just like in previous years, scavengers flood the potato fields, searching for anything edible. He explained, frozen potatoes can be dried and ground into powder to make noodles or potato cakes. Farmers in rural Ryanggang have been unable to work recently because they have nothing to eat. The resident described the current situation as dire, adding that the North Korean government is trying to hide the number of starvation deaths by claiming that these people died from illness. He said clinics and neighborhood watch units report that they died of disease, but in truth, everyone who has recently died from illness has actually starved because they had nothing to eat. Jiro Ishimaru, the director of Asia Press, told Radio Free Asia that deaths from starvation in North Korea typically increase around March. Ishimaru stated, "Fear is spreading rapidly among the North Korean population, especially the most vulnerable. If things continue as they are, people will start dying of hunger, just like last year." He added that although agricultural output in northern North Korea increased last year, the amount of food allocated to farmers didn't change significantly. Most of the grain is distributed to the military first, leaving little for the general population. A resident of South Pyeonggang Province reported that farmers who are too weak to work due to hunger can receive some food rations in advance, but this will be deducted from their annual allocation. The North Korean defector, Yong-mi Park, has described how, during her childhood, she had to eat insects to survive. She has blamed the ruling Kim family for letting their people starve. Both her uncle and grandmother died from malnutrition. She said, "I have visited slums in Mumbai and other countries, but nothing is like North Korea, because North Korean starvation is a systemic starvation by a country that chose to starve us. North Korea spends billions of dollars to make this nuke test system. If they could spend just 20% of what they spent on making nuclear weapons, nobody would have to die in North Korea from hunger, but the regime chose to make us hungry." Some believe that North Korea's food shortage is also tied to annual floods. It has been reported that heavy rains lasting for 3 days, starting on July 25th, flooded more than 4,100 homes, about 3,000 hectares of farmland, and many public facilities, roads, and railways in North Korea. This raised concerns within the South Korean government. They pointed out that North Korea's quick disclosure of flood damage was unusual, suggesting that the situation is very serious and could impact the autumn grain harvest. Notably, North Korea has not disclosed specific information about casualties or property damage. However, reports say that Kim Jong-un has blamed government officials for neglecting disaster prevention efforts, leading to unacceptable casualties. According to South Korea's Ministry of Unification, satellite imagery analysis shows that areas like Wihwa Island, Sinuiju County, and Manpo City and Chagang Province were flooded, which may have caused significant casualties. Jong Sang-chang, an analyst at the Sejong Institute in Seoul, commented that North Korea has recently been hit by severe floods, resulting in heavy losses across many regions. Reports indicate that North Korea faced severe rainstorms in July, particularly in the northwestern regions near China, which caused 4,000 deaths and displaced 15,000 people. In recent years, North Korea has faced a serious food crisis. The United Nations World Food Program previously estimated that about 10 million people in North Korea were suffering from the worst food shortages in a decade. The Korea Development Institute has noted that North Korea is undergoing a food crisis, with many families facing malnutrition or a lack of food. The institute stated that North Koreans are selling whatever little assets they have just to buy food. People are selling their basic household goods to afford something to eat, which is unsustainable. Immediate action is needed to address this crisis. Song Yong-chae, an activist with the Worldwide Coalition to Stop Genocide in North Korea, told The Telegraph UK that they have learned through informants that the North Korean people are suffering and dying. Song said that the famine is a result of both poor economic management and money being spent on nuclear weapons and missiles. Although South Korea has offered food and other aid, North Korea has not responded. A resident from Sinuiju, a city near the North Korean-Chinese border, shared that authorities have told citizens to save and reduce food consumption until 2025. A report from South Korea's Ministry of Unification, published in February this year, revealed that more than 72% of defectors who arrived in South Korea between 2016 and 2020 said they never received government food rations in North Korea. In contrast, among those who arrived before 2000, 62% reported the same. About half of the defectors who arrived in South Korea between 2016 and 2020 said they received no wages or food from their work. This compares to one-third of defectors who arrived before 2000. Nearly 94% of those surveyed said they earned money in North Korea through markets. Among those who fled between 2016 and 2020, 69% said their household income came from informal channels, while 39% of those who left before 2000 reported the same. The report also mentioned that 37% of respondents said officials in North Korea took at least 30% of their income. This figure rose to 41% after Kim Jong-un came to power in late 2011. According to Reuters, this 280-page report on North Korea's economic and social conditions was based on interviews with more than 6,300 defectors from 2013 to 2022. South Korea's Ministry of Unification began conducting such surveys in 2010, but this is the first time the results have been made public. In June this year, the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, briefed the Security Council on North Korea's human rights situation. He said that North Korea today is a country isolated from the world. Living in this suffocating, claustrophobic environment, people struggle daily, seeing no hope. Turk also mentioned that the social and economic conditions in North Korea have become unbearable. He is particularly concerned about access to food. He stated that everyone interviewed mentioned this issue in one way or another. As one person put it, it's easy to become weak and malnourished because there's nothing to eat. Although the government appears to be making efforts to address food security, it has simultaneously closed most small-scale markets and restricted vendors from selling food in other markets. This increasing centralization of food production and distribution is limiting people's access to food. The report indicates that nearly half of the population has been food insecure in recent years, and child malnutrition is worsening in some provinces. Turk called for equal access to food rights for all citizens and emphasized the importance of international cooperation to achieve this goal. He also pointed out that various forms of forced labor still exist within North Korea. The government maintains strict control over workers sent abroad. Most of these workers described to his office the harsh conditions they endured, often performing dangerous physical labor, lacking sufficient food and health care, being under constant surveillance, suffering from physical abuse, and having up to 90% of their wages confiscated by the state.